Right on to the real, much love to these haters. It's time for the Lakers, it's time for the Lakers. Right on to the real, much love to these haters. It's time for the Lakers, it's time for the Lakers. Right on to the real, much love to these haters. It's time for the Lakers, it's time for the... And what is happening, my YouTube family? Of course, it is your boy B New. I am coming at you on this Monday. And first and foremost, as always, just want to send out positive vibrations and positive blessings to anybody who could be listening. And please, as always, don't forget to hit that subscribe and hit that bell for the reminders for when I will be uploading. So with all that being said, we know that the Los Angeles Lakers were in action on Saturday night at a primetime game. And when you just know that this damn truck had to pull up to me being loud while I'm trying to make my young video. But with all that being said, let me just slide up on them a little bit. The way LeBron James slid back into that lineup and handle business as we all knew that he would on Saturday night. And we got a lot to talk about regarding that game, because there were some things that did transpire in the game, which ultimately was a victory for the Lakers. They had the victory, of course, 122-115 in a game that went to overtime that should not have been to overtime, and actually should have never even really been close, because the Lakers, of course, as we know, went out and, as usual, dug themselves a bit of a hole. And when you dig yourself deep into a hole, it's hard to get out of. But once the Lakers went down by what? I think they was down by as much as 21. You know, they was giving the Lakers like plus 12, plus 10. So I decided to make a little bit of money on that during some live betting, because I knew the Lakers were not going to lose by that much, and they would eventually make it a close game, if not win the game. And of course, we all know that that's what they did. Went on to win the game in the return of LeBron James, who had been out, as we all know, nursing a sore knee, which I feel, and even though they haven't really given any specifics on it, I feel it's just simply just tendonitis in the knee, and that comes with age. But to me, I don't think he has a problem with that knee, because even on plays when it was a blown whistle, he's still going up doing reverse two-hand dunks, pump, windmill, whatever. So LeBron, take it easy on your knees, man. We need you for this playoff run. Like, no need to do all that. Matter of fact, just stop dunking unless you really have to. Just lay it in. We're not mad at you. You know, just dunk it in the finals. Dunk it in the finals, like on top of KD head or something, maybe to knock some of them BDBs up out of it. But no, I'm just playing. So anyway, LeBron James came back, as we all know, the triple dub, which should have been 31 points, but of course they took his points, talking about basket interference, which to me was a strange play. I kind of see what they were saying. I think because once he tipped it in, he grabbed the rim. He didn't have complete control of the ball. He grabbed the rim before it fell all the way through, and that's the only thing that I could see where they could say that potentially could have been basket interference. But at the end of the day, you know, he still dropped 29, 13, and 10, and of course shot 54% from the field. I think he was 2 out of 7 or 2 out of 8 from three-point land, which I wish he would stop taking the threes, because think about it, if he shot 54% from the game and you take away those 8 threes, imagine how deadly it could have been. Now, one of those threes was actually a three-point that was much needed while the Lakers were in the midst of the comeback. He hit a long three way at the top of the key, maybe 3 or 4 feet past the line, and of course made that shot as the Lakers went on their run. But as we all know, the key person that really what sparked the comeback was, of course, Malik Monk in that third quarter. Malik Monk actually outscored the Knicks, the whole Knicks team, in the third quarter alone, because I want to say Malik Monk had 18 points in that quarter, in that third quarter, and he really got it going. And of course, we all know the Knicks only had 13 in that quarter, and that just lets me know that Lakers are capable of playing good defense. And the lineup that they used was pretty much the lineup that they started the game with. And we'll talk about the Ariza getting all this playing time. I'm gonna touch on that in just a moment, but pretty much what happened is the Lakers got punched in the mouth early in the game. It basically, what it boiled down to, the Lakers got punched in the mouth early in the game, and the Knicks came out. Of course, I think Russ had a turnover. They hit a 3. Lakers missed. They hit a 3. It was like 9-0 within like a minute. Lakers missed a 3, then they hit a 3, you know, or whatever. So with all that being said, you know, they just came out on fire, and I knew that they would come down to earth, because I think in the first half they were shooting like 60% from three-point land. And you got to think about it, the Knicks ended the game from three-point land only 11 out of 38, which is 29%. So that shows me that the Lakers played much better defense in the second half. And one thing I do see that they are doing is they pretty much switch on every play defensively. So they bring help. They switch over every time, and they were quick on their feet as far as getting out to the three-point shooters and closing out and not giving up the three-point shot, which really would help them get back in the game. And I think a lot of that is due to, I want to keep singing his praises, is Austin Reeves, because Austin Reeves, when he's out there, he gives you everything that it takes on the defensive end, all the energy that you need. Sometimes you might get beat by a better offense, because good offense is going to be good defense, as we saw what happened at the end of the Clippers game. Even though Russ should have been, should have helped better when he came for the help and sealed off, Reggie Jackson for going back. But if you want to talk about that, look at the last video. We're not going to dwell on that. But what I'm saying is, when Austin Reeves is in the game, the defensive tenacity that he brings is everything that the Lakers need. So I'm looking forward to Kendrick Nunn hopefully coming back. It got to be at the All-Star break. Like, at some point, they kept saying January, or whatever, because if Malik Monk can get you, he a walking bucket. So then if you can get another bucket from Kendrick Nunn, because we all know what he's capable of doing on the offensive end, then the Lakers are going to be just fine. And I had said before, as long as Anthony Davis plays the way he was playing the 5 games that LeBron missed, then the Lakers going to be a tough out for anybody. And what I saw from Anthony Davis was that same effort that he gave, especially on the boards. 17 rebounds again, 28-17 and 3 for AD with a couple of blocks, 3 steals and 4 blocks actually, and shot 68% from the field. So if he's shooting 68% from the field, get him that ball down on the post. Like, no more jumpers, AD. I mean, take them if you open, you get it from the elbow. I understand you might want to fill it out a couple times a game, but for the most part, keep getting the ball down low. You're getting a lot of good putbacks. You're definitely crashing the board. The one when you knew Russ was going to miss that 3 and he shot it from the corner and you just rushed in right there and dunked it, that's the type of energy we need to see on a consistent basis. And if Anthony Davis stays healthy and LeBron James is healthy, then we know what's going to happen. And we all know that the Lakers will have a good gauge on tomorrow when they take on the Milwaukee Bucks. They will have a good gauge of where they are tomorrow, because that's a team that we know is trending in the right direction, and they are the defending champion. So we'll have a full breakdown on that game tomorrow, as I do a pregame show in the morning on that, and also kind of break down the matchups, see who's in and who's out, and also just break down the matchups to see what the Lakers need to do, who they need to start, what rotations Frank Vogel needs to go with to be successful. And speaking of rotations, now let me kind of focus in on where I was talking about before, is Trevor Ariza. He got a lot of playing time. I want to say around 31 minutes compared to Stanley Johnson, 22 minutes. And to me, that is discouraging. I know Carmelo Anthony is out right now with injury as far as his hamstring, and I think he's day-to-day with that, so that's good news. Even though Carmelo is a defensive liability, and I would much rather see those minutes go to Stanley Johnson over Carmelo, even though Carmelo give you the three-point shooting. But that's why he needs to come off the bench behind Stanley Johnson, and we don't need to see Trevor Ariza. But what I noticed was the Lakers did mount a comeback, and Trevor Ariza plus minus has been nice the past couple games. Don't get me wrong. But you have to also look who he's been on the floor with. I mean, he's been on the floor with, especially this last game, his plus minus was nice, because for the most part, when he was on the floor with Anthony Davis and LeBron James at the same time, and Austin Reeves too. So that was giving him a good plus minus. But at the end of the day, Trevor Ariza was getting really handled on defense. It's just lateral movement is not where it used to be. I feel like the reason why the Knicks kind of got back in the game was due to Trevor Ariza too, because late in the game, if you go back, if anybody got it recorded, please go back and look. And I'm just basing this off memory, but Trevor Ariza, the Knicks were choosing to foul early, which to me, it actually played out pretty good in their advantage by them fouling early, because the Lakers are such a poor free throw shooting team, and they shot 17 out of 28, 61%, which is pathetic, and that's the reason why the Knicks was able to get back in the game. But at one point, Trevor could have passed the ball and ran up more time, and he saw the Knicks was fouling. He could have passed over LeBron. LeBron could have passed to the front court. It would have ran a little more time off the clock, and you could have got the ball in the hands of maybe Malik Monk, who we know is an 85% free throw shooter. But instead, Trevor Ariza elected to hold on to the ball, even though they were trying to foul. The refs weren't even calling the foul on the first couple of swipes, and then they end up calling the foul, and he goes down there and, of course, only makes one of the free throws. And, of course, we know in that same stretch, Russell Westbrook, who we will talk about here in just a minute. I'm saving that for last. Russell Westbrook misses both his free throws. And back to Trevor Ariza, what I'm saying is it wasn't just him missing the free throw. It was once the Lakers missed a shot and they were down by 3 and they was going back down, and it's only, 15, 20 seconds left, whatever it was left in the game. You know, the Knicks needed 3 to tie it up. So in transition defense, you know, sometimes people are going to find mismatches because, you know, you got to put a body on a body in transition. You not necessarily can't make it back to your man, you know, necessarily. And when they was getting back down the court, he ran straight down the center of the court, right down to the paint. Not even putting the body on the body, mind you, just running down to the paint. Like, why was you even trying to protect the rim? From what? They down by 3. So, of course, R.J. Barrett ran straight to the three-point line, and they passed it to him. And Trevor Ariza could not get even close to a contest up because he had ran down to the damn middle of the paint, which the rest of the Lakers hadn't made it back anyway. But at the end of the day, they hit the 3 and forced the overtime. And, you know, I didn't like the play that they drew up at the end where they didn't have to necessarily go to overtime. Looks like they were doing the pick and roll with LeBron, but they decided they didn't double LeBron and they rolled with Anthony Davis. And he was pretty much glued to his body, with little time left. LeBron was just pretty much forced into the shot. So I give the Knicks credit, good defense on the pick and roll defense on that particular play. But I also would have liked to see some more weak side moving to give LeBron James options. And I just saw more of a standing around, because if the game is tied, you only needed 2. So it would have been good to have another option, somebody, you know, running off a screen elsewhere to get open for a potential shot or a run at the rim. I actually wouldn't have mind seeing Malik Monk handle the ball, and I know LeBron James is great and going to make the right play, but Malik had been hot. You know, I could have liked to see him in an isolation one-on-one with a chance to pull up and take the shot and or drive to the rim to get contact. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. It went to overtime, and we all know what happened in the overtime, as the Lakers did prevail 122 to 115. And now it's time to talk about Russell Westbrook, because as we all know, in overtime, Russell Westbrook was benched and did not play. And I'm not necessarily upset with that decision from Frank Vogel, and I really don't think it's as big of a deal as a lot of people are making it out to be. Russ was having a bad game. He was 1 out of 10. You know, he did have that horrible shot where the fans booed him when he shot it damn near off the top of the backboard with that ugly bank shot that he be off on them sometimes. But at the end of the day, I think he let the fans get in his head a little bit with the booing. And then when he was trying to shoot the 3 from the corner, and they was like, no, don't shoot, or whatever. So I think he let that get in his head, and he was 1 out of 10. But at this point, ladies and gentlemen, Russ is not going anywhere. He's not going to be traded. Nobody's going to take him, and they're going to have to work it out. So what Russ needs really is encouragement and support from Lakers Nation. And I know a lot of people say Russ would do better coming off the bench. I would agree, but we all know you don't pay bench players $45 million. So what I've been saying since the beginning of the season, the best thing to do, let Russ start the game and then just stagger his minutes. If you let him start the game and then just bring him out in like the 7-minute mark of the first quarter, let LeBron and AD continue to play, then let LeBron get his break with like 4 minutes left in the quarter, and then you just got AD, and now LeBron and Westbrook is getting their break. And then when Anthony Davis goes to get his rest, you can bring AD back. You can bring Westbrook back at the end of the quarter and let him play some with AD without LeBron, because now you don't have 2 major ball handlers on the floor at the same time. And then to start the second quarter, of course, since AD normally played that whole first quarter, he can go ahead and take his break, and then you could have Westbrook in with the bench players, and then bring in LeBron, maybe trim some of his minutes out instead of having LeBron start the beginning of the second quarter. Let him come in 2 or 3 minutes after the second quarter, which is extending his break between quarters, because you get that extended period of break because you had the timeout, the TV timeout between the quarters. And then if he waits a couple of minutes to the first ball stoppage, then he comes in, then Westbrook can go back out, or LeBron and Westbrook could play a few minutes together. Then you send Westbrook to the bench and bring back in AD. Then you giving AD and LeBron more minutes. But what Frank Vogel needs to do, and it's not damn rocket science, is utilize, somebody look this up for me. I know I got some smart people listening to this, and I want to do it myself, but I've been far busy, and I don't also always have the best ways to look at some of these things up to get the exact statistics that I need, but this is important to me. So if y'all can find this out for me, man, it'll be peace and much love to you for always. Find out how many minutes, not total, but on average, LeBron and AD play on the court together, and then what is their plus minus on the court together. I've done this before. You could probably use StatMuse to find out, but somebody do that, man. Put that down in the comments. If not, I'm gonna have to do my own research, and we can talk about that later, because if you go back about a year or so ago, I did a video on whose team was it, LeBron or AD, and I pulled out a lot of very statistical information that showed everybody who team it really was and why. And men lie, women lie, but numbers don't lie. You understand what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, you know, like I've been saying, I'm not concerned that Westbrook was benched. To me, it's really not that big of a deal, because Westbrook said all the right things in the press conference following that. He said the win was the most important thing. He said, coach, do what they got to do to win. You know, even when he had the big game, let's not forget, he just had a big game. Was it in Charlotte or wherever where he had the big game, 30-some points, where I think AD and LeBron was out, and he played phenomenal. So he's still capable of playing well within the system. You just have to have him on the floor with the right players. Russ needs to be a driver player that's playing downhill and getting to the basket, which he's still capable of doing, and somebody who can distribute the ball, which he is still capable of doing. So if Russ is on the floor, I say, you know, have him on the floor with Austin Reeves. Have him on the floor with Malik Monk. Have him on the floor with even Trevor Reeves at times if you decide to give him minutes, but while Carmelo's out, but with Carmelo, because then what's going to happen is he's going to find open shooters and he's going to break down defenses, and that's when he's going to be most effective. But stagger the minutes. Let him not get so many minutes with LeBron. Let him have more minutes with AD and with the bench, because he's more of a ball-dominant player. And we know LeBron is a very ball-dominant player, and they've actually found ways. I mean, they've been some nice plays where I think LeBron and Russ can still coexist, because there's been some times where LeBron play off the ball and Russ finds him, and vice versa. So it's possible. They just got to run that kind of action. But at the end of the day, Russ just got to get out of his own head, and he has to continue just to play hard. And I think that's something that he's more than capable of doing. So, you know, as always, it's right on to the real. Much love to these haters, and we do know that the Lakers will be in action on tomorrow night after a 2-day break. Be very interesting to see. I think the way AD played against Joel Embiid and the way he's been playing the last five games, I would like to see the matchup of him and Giannis. It's going to be a great matchup, depending on well, we'll talk more about that tomorrow. But as always, right on to the real. Much love to these haters. I'm out.